Picture this. You're 6 months pregnant. Your husband texts you about a surprise dinner. You arrive excited, hopeful. Maybe things are finally getting better in your marriage. But when that door opens, you realize the surprise isn't for you. It's about you. 6 women, one mission. 17 minutes of violence so calculated, so brutal, that doctors gave you a 10% chance of survival. Your husband stands in the corner, watching, not stopping them, not helping you, just watching. And when it's over, he gets paid $2,000 for delivering you to them, but here's what they didn't count on. You have 7 Navy SEAL brothers, and you survive. This is the true story of Grace Sullivan, a woman who was betrayed by everyone she trusted, a woman who fought back from the edge of death, and a woman who made sure every single person who hurt her faced justice. What happened in that apartment will shock you. What happened in that courtroom will satisfy you. And what happened 1 year later, that will inspire you. Stay with me for the next 90 minutes, because this story needs to be heard. Beep, 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 the sound drilled into Grace Sullivan's skull before her eyes could open. She tried to move her hand, but it felt like someone had filled her veins with concrete. Everything hurt, not the sharp pain of a cut or the ache of sore muscles. This was different. This was the kind of pain that came from deep inside, radiating outward like she'd been hit by a truck, or several people. Grace's eyelids felt glued shut. She forced them open anyway, squinting against harsh fluorescent lights that stabbed into her brain. White ceiling tiles, the smell of disinfectant, and something metallic. Copper. Blood. Her blood. Gracie, a man's voice broke through the fog, familiar. Safe. Gracie, I'm here. She turned her head, or tried to. Pain exploded behind her left eye. She gasped, and even that hurt. Something was in her nose. Tubes. She could feel them now, running across her face, down her throat. Don't move too fast. The voice again, closer now, a hand wrapped around hers, warm and rough with calluses. You're okay. You're safe now. Tyler. Her brother Tyler. The medic. Why was Tyler here? Why was she? The baby. Grace's free hand flew to her stomach. Tubes and wires be damned. Her 6-month pregnant belly was still there, round and firm under a thin hospital gown. But was the baby? Tyler. Her voice came out as a croak, barely human. The baby. His jaw clenched. She could see it even through her blurred vision. That wasn't good. Tyler only clenched his jaw like that when he was trying not to lose control. Let me get the doctor, he said, starting to stand. No. Grace's fingers tightened around his hand with more strength than she thought she had. Tell me, right now. Tyler looked toward the door, then back at her. His eyes were red-rimmed. Had he been crying? Tyler never cried. She'd seen him stitch his own leg wound in Afghanistan without flinching. But now he looked like he might break. The baby's alive, he said finally. But Gracie, you need to hear this from Dr. Hendricks. She's the trauma surgeon who... I'm here. A woman in her 50s strode through the door, white coat crisp despite what had to be the middle of the night. Dr. Patricia Hendricks, the name tag confirmed it. She had kind eyes but a no-nonsense expression that reminded Grace of her mother. Dr. Hendricks pulled up a stool beside the bed, her movements efficient but not rushed. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm glad you're awake. You've been unconscious for 16 hours. 16 hours. Grace tried to process that. What day was it? What had... Before we discuss anything else, Dr. Hendricks continued, I need to tell you about your baby. The room tilted. Grace's heart rate monitor started beeping faster. Tyler's hand squeezed hers harder. Your daughter is alive, Dr. Hendricks said, and Grace felt tears spill down her cheeks before she even processed the words. Her heartbeat is strong, but she's in distress. The trauma to your abdomen caused placental bruising. The next 48 hours are critical. A daughter. She was having a daughter. Will she? Grace couldn't finish the question. I don't make promises I can't keep, Dr. Hendricks said. But I can tell you that you got here in time. Another hour and we would have lost you both. Grace's vision swam. Lost you both. Someone had tried to turn. What happened to me? The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Tyler's jaw clenched again. Dr. Hendricks glanced at him, then back at Grace. "You have 3 cracked ribs on your left side," the doctor said, her voice clinical but gentle. "A fractured orbital bone around your left eye. Extensive bruising across your abdomen, chest, and back. A mild concussion. Lacerations on your scalp that required 17 stitches." Grace stared at her. "Those injuries sounded like someone hurt you, Gracie." Tyler's voice cracked. "Someone hurt you bad." The memories tried to surface, but they came in fragments. Flashes of light, laughter, pain. A woman's face twisted in rage. Vanessa. That was Vanessa's face. "Mrs. Sullivan, the pattern of your injuries indicates multiple assailants with intent to cause severe bodily harm." Lord Hendricks leaned forward slightly. "Do you remember what happened?" Grace opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her mind felt like a puzzle with half the pieces missing. There was Derek's text. Tuesday afternoon. She'd been at the grocery store picking out apples when her phone buzzed. "Surprise dinner tonight, Vanessa's place, special announcement." She'd been excited. Derek had been distant for months, but maybe he'd planned something. Maybe things were finally getting better. Maybe. The monitor's beeping accelerated with her heart rate. "That's enough for now, Doctor," Hendricks said, standing. "You need rest. We'll talk more when you're stronger." "No," Grace's voice came out stronger than she expected. "I need to know. Where's Derek?" The question erupted from somewhere deep inside her. "Were you there?" "Where's my husband?" Tyler looked away. That's when Grace knew. Whatever had happened, Derek had been there. Derek knew. Or worse, Dr. Hendricks didn't leave. Instead, she pulled the stool closer and folded her hands in her lap. "Your husband is in police custody, Mrs. Sullivan." The words hung in the air like smoke. Grace blinked, trying to make sense of them. Police custody. Derek. Her Derek, who brought her tea every morning, who'd proposed on a beach at sunset, who'd cried when they found out about the baby. That Derek? "I don't understand," Grace whispered. "The police will want to talk to you when you're ready, dear Hendrik, but first, you need to know the extent of your injuries. You need to understand what was done to you." Tyler stood abruptly and walked to the window. His shoulders were rigid, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Grace had seen him like this before, during deployments when things went sideways, when good men died and there was nothing he could do about it. "Tell me," Grace said. Dr. Hendricks nodded. "Your cracked ribs were caused by repeated kicks or blows with a blunt object. The fracture around your eye came from direct impact, likely a fist or elbow. The bruising on your abdomen suggests stomping or kneeling." Stomping on her pregnant belly. Grace's hand moved to her stomach again, cradling the small life inside. Someone had tried to kill her baby. Someone had... "The lacerations on your scalp are consistent with hair pulling and head trauma against a hard surface," Dr. Hendricks continued. "You have defensive wounds on your hands and arms, which means you fought back." Good. Grace didn't remember fighting, but she was glad she had. She hoped she'd hurt them. Whoever they were. Except she knew who they were. The memories were coming back now, trickling in like water through a cracked dam. Tuesday, Derek's text. She'd driven to Vanessa's apartment building, the nice one downtown with the doorman and the rooftop pool. Vanessa was Derek's coworker. His work wife, he'd called her, laughing. Just a friend, nothing to worry about. Grace had believed him. God, she'd been so stupid. She'd taken the elevator to the 12th floor carrying the apple pie she'd baked that morning. Derek loved apple pie. Maybe they could share it, whatever the announcement was. Maybe he'd gotten a promotion. Maybe. The elevator doors opened. Grace walked down the hallway, heels clicking on polished hardwood. "Apartment 1207. She knocked. Vanessa answered. Beautiful Vanessa with her perfect highlights in her designer dress. She smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who just cornered prey. "Surprise," Vanessa said, stepping aside. 6 women sat in the living room, wine glasses in hand, all staring at Grace. "Come in, Grace," Vanessa purred. "We've been waiting for you." Grace's hands trembled against the hospital sheets. Tyler must have noticed because he was back at her side in an instant, covering her shaking fingers with his steady ones. You're remembering, Tom, he said. It wasn't on a question. There were 6 of them, Grace whispered. 6 women in Vanessa's apartment. They were drinking wine. They were celebrating. That was the word Derek had used. Celebrating. Derek was there, Grace continued, the words coming faster now. He was standing by the window. He looked at me and he smiled. He actually smiled. Tyler's jaw worked. A muscle jumped in his cheek. One of them pushed me, Grace said. The blonde one. Tiffany? She pushed me and I dropped the pie. It smashed on the floor and they all laughed. They laughed like it was the funniest thing they had ever seen. Der Hendricks pulled a small notepad from her coat pocket. Mrs. Sullivan, if you're ready, I can call Detective Brennan. She's been waiting to speak with you. I want to talk, Grace said. Her voice was steady now, even though everything inside her was screaming. I need to talk. Gracie, you don't have to do this right now, Tyler said. You can rest. You can... I can't rest. Grace looked at him. Really looked at him. Her baby brother. Well, not so baby anymore. He was 30 years old, a Navy medic with 2 combat deployments under his belt. But right now, he looked like he did when they were kids and someone had broken his favorite toy. I need to remember, Grace said. I need to know what they did. Tyler nodded slowly. He understood. In combat, you had to know the enemy's tactics. You had to understand the threat. I'll get Detective Brennan, Dr. Hendricks said, standing. But Grace, may I call you Grace? Yes. You survived. That's what matters right now. You and your daughter survived. After the doctor left, Tyler sat on the edge of the bed. The others are coming, he said. Ryan, Connor, Blake, Hunter, Carson, Austin, all of them. All 7 of her brothers. The Mitchell boys, their mother called them, even though the youngest was 26. Navy SEALs, every single one. Well, Connor had left the teams to join the FBI, but he still had that SEAL edge. Does Mom know? Grace asked. She's flying in from North Carolina. Should be here by morning. Morning. Grace glanced at the window. It was dark outside. What time was it? What day was it? It's Wednesday, Tyler said, reading her mind. Almost 2 in the morning. You were brought in yesterday around 10 at night. Yesterday? The attack had been yesterday. The door opened and a woman in her mid-40s entered. She wore slacks and a blazer despite the late hour, and her eyes were sharp and assessing. Detective Laura Brennan, according to her badge. Mrs. Sullivan, she said, pulling up a chair. I'm so sorry for what happened to you. I know this is difficult, but anything you can remember will help us build a strong case. A case against Derek, against Vanessa, against all of them. I remember, Grace said. Not everything, but enough. Detective Brennan pulled out a small recording device. Do you consent to having this conversation recorded? Yes. Good. Let's start with the beginning. How did you end up at Vanessa Brooks's apartment yesterday evening? Vanessa Brooks. So that was her full name. Derek texted me, Grace said, around 2 in the afternoon. He said there was a surprise dinner at Vanessa's place, a special announcement. Did that strike you as unusual? Grace wanted to say yes. She wanted to say she'd known something was wrong. But that would be a lie, a beak. No, she admitted. Derek worked closely with Vanessa. They'd been on projects together for years. I thought maybe it was a work thing. Detective Brennan nodded, making notes. What happened when you arrived? Grace closed her eyes and let the memories come. Vanessa answered the door. She was smiling, but it wasn't friendly. There were 5 other women in the apartment, all staring at me. Can you describe them? The blonde one was Tiffany. I'd met her before at a company party. She's some kind of fitness influencer, always posting workout videos. Grace paused. There was a redhead, Amber, I think. She's a real estate agent. Derek mentioned her once. What about the others? I don't know their names. A brunette with a pixie cut, another blonde with long hair, and a woman with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Grace's hand went to her scalp, where the stitches pulled tight. She was the one who grabbed my hair. Detective Brennan wrote everything down. What happened next? Vanessa told me to come in, said they'd been waiting for me. I walked into the living room, and that's when Tiffany pushed me. I dropped the pie I'd brought. It smashed everywhere. Did anyone say why you were there? Grace opened her eyes. The fluorescent lights burned, but she didn't look away. Vanessa said they were celebrating. Celebrating what? My disappearance. The words hung in the air. Tyler made a sound low in his throat, somewhere between a growl and a sob. She said Derek was finally going to be free, Grace continued. Her voice was mechanical now, reciting facts like she was reading a grocery list. Detachment, that's what Tyler called it. The mind's way of protecting itself from trauma. She said I'd trapped him with the pregnancy, that he never wanted to be a father, that I'd ruined his life. What did your husband say? Grace looked at Detective Brennan, really looked at her. The detective's eyes were kind but firm. She'd done this before. She'd sat with broken women in hospital rooms and listened to them describe the worst moments of their lives. He said nothing, Grace whispered. He just stood there by the window, watching. Did he try to stop them? No. That single word carried the weight of 4 years of marriage. 4 years of believing Derek loved her. 4 years of making excuses for his distance, his irritability, his late nights at work. 4 years of being blind. Tell me what happened next, Detective Brennan said gently. Grace took a breath. Her ribs screamed in protest. Tiffany pushed me again. I stumbled backward. My heel caught on the rug, and I fell. That's when they started kicking. Tyler stood abruptly and walked to the far corner of the room. Grace could see his shoulders shaking. They took turns, Grace said. Tiffany kicked my ribs. Amber got my stomach. The dark-haired one pulled my hair, slammed my head against the floor. Someone else, I don't know who, kept stomping on my back. How long did this go on? I don't know, it felt like hours. It was probably minutes. Did anyone try to help you? No, Ihaya. Grace's voice hardened. Derek stood there the entire time. When I screamed his name, when I begged him to make them stop, he turned away. He looked out the window like I wasn't even there. Detective Brennan's pen moved across the page. Mrs. Sullivan, I need to ask you something important. Did your husband participate in the assault, or did he only observe? Grace thought about that, remembered Derek's face, blank and unmoved, remembered reaching for him, her fingers grasping at air. He didn't hit me, Grace said slowly, but when I was unconscious, when they were dragging me out of the apartment, I remember that part, barely. I remember floating, being carried. Derek helped them put me in his car. His car? Yes, I remember the smell. He has one of those pine tree air fresheners. I hate those things. Always have. Detective Brennan leaned forward. Grace, do you remember anything after being put in the car? No, that's the last thing, pine trees and darkness. You were found in your car, Detective Brennan said, parked in the hospital emergency bay. Someone called 911 anonymously from a burner phone. By the time security got outside, your car was there with you, unconscious in the driver's seat, keys in the ignition. They dumped her, like trash. Mrs. Sullivan, there's something else you need to know. Detective Brennan pulled out her phone. We recovered your cell phone from Vanessa's apartment. It was in your purse, which was still there. Okay, Grace said slowly. We need your permission to access the messages. But Grace, I want to prepare you. What we found changes everything. Tyler turned around. His face was pale. Show her. Detective Brennan hesitated. Are you sure you want to see this now? Yes, Grace said. I want to see everything. The detective held out her phone. On the screen was a text conversation between Derek and Vanessa. Grace's hands shook as she took the phone and started reading. 3 weeks ago. Vanessa, she's showing now. Everyone at work keeps congratulating you. Makes me sick. Derek, I know, I hate it too. 2 weeks ago. Vanessa, when are you going to tell her? Derek, tell her what? Vanessa, that you're leaving, that you never wanted this. Derek, it's complicated, Vanessa. It's only complicated because you make it complicated. Leave her. 1 week ago, Derek, I can't just leave. She's pregnant. Vanessa, exactly. She trapped you. This is your out. Derek, what do you mean? Vanessa, women lose pregnancies all the time. Accidents happen. Grace stopped reading. Her hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped the phone. Keep reading, Detective Brennan said softly. 5 days ago, Vanessa, my girls will handle it. You just need to get her there. Derek, handle what? Vanessa, the problem. She needs to lose that baby, then you're free. Derek, I don't know, Van. This seems extreme. Vanessa, do you love me or not? Derek, you know I do. Vanessa, then trust me. My friends know what they're doing. A few hits to the stomach, she'll miscarry. Stress. That's what everyone will think. Stress from the pregnancy. 2 days ago, Derek, what if she doesn't come? Vanessa, she will. You're her husband. She'll come if you tell her to. She always does. Derek, okay. Tuesday night. Vanessa, Tuesday night. Don't chicken out, Derek. This is for us. Grace's vision blurred. She couldn't see the rest through her tears. There's more, Detective Brennan said, but I think that's enough for now. Tyler was suddenly beside her, taking the phone away, gathering her into his arms as much as he could with all the tubes and wires. Grace buried her face in his shoulder and sobbed. 3 weeks. They'd planned this for 3 weeks. Derek had planned to kill their baby, and he'd almost succeeded. Grace couldn't stop shaking, even after Tyler held her. Even after Dr. Hendricks gave her something for the anxiety, her body trembled like she was freezing. But she wasn't cold. She was burning. Burning with a fury so intense it scared her. I need to see the rest, she said, when the medication started to work, dulling the sharp edges of panic. The texts, I need to see all of them. Detective Brennan exchanged a glance with Tyler. Grace, you've been through enough tonight. No, Grace's voice was steel now. They planned to kill my baby. I need to know everything. The detective nodded slowly and handed back her phone. There are 37 messages between your husband and Vanessa Brooks over the past month. They detail the planning of what happened to you. Grace scrolled with numb fingers. The messages got worse. 4 days ago, Derek, what if something goes wrong? Vanessa, nothing will go wrong. Tiffany used to box. Amber knows how to hurt someone without leaving obvious marks. Stephanie's a bartender. She's broken up plenty of fights. Brianna's a nursing student. She'll know when to stop before any permanent damage. Derek, and Nicole? Vanessa, Nicole hates pregnant women. Her ex left her for someone younger who got knocked up immediately. She'll be enthusiastic. Grace stopped breathing. Brianna was a nursing student. Someone training to help people had agreed to beat a pregnant woman. 3 days ago, Derek, how much? Vanessa, how much what? Derek, Aishakim, Amho. How much will this cost me? Vanessa, 5,000, 1,000 per girl. They're doing you a favor. Derek, that's a lot of money, Vanessa. It's a lot less than 18 years of child support. He'd haggled over the price. Derek had negotiated the cost of having his wife beaten unconscious like he was buying a used car. The day of the attack, Vanessa, everything's set, 7 p.m. Tell her to wear comfortable shoes. We're going to make her run first. Derek, run? Vanessa, it'll look like an accident if she falls, plus it's more fun. Derek, Van, I'm not sure. Vanessa, too late now. Either you're in or you're out. But if you're out, I'm done with you. Derek, I'm in. I love you. Vanessa, prove it. They were going to make me run, Grace whispered, like it was a game. Tyler's hand clenched into a fist so tight his knuckles went white. Gracie, there's one more thing, Detective Brennan interrupted. The text you received from Derek. The one about the surprise dinner. Grace looked at the detective. What about it? He sent it from his office at 2:14 p.m., exactly 15 minutes after Vanessa confirmed all 5 women would be there. 2:14. Grace had been picking out apples, deciding between Granny Smith and Honeycrisp. Her biggest concern was whether Derek would prefer sweet or tart, and he was texting his mistress about the logistics of having her attacked. Where is he? Grace asked. Where's Derek now? In custody, Detective Brennan said. Along with all 5 women, they were arrested last night. Where were they when I was found? The detective's expression hardened. At a bar 3 blocks from the hospital. Celebrating. The word hit Grace like a physical blow. Celebrating. While she'd been dying, while her baby had been in distress, they'd been celebrating. We have security footage from the bar, Detective Brennan continued. Time-stamped at 11:43 p.m. Vanessa bought a round of shots. She made a toast. What did she say? Do you really want to know? Yes. Detective Brennan pulled out her notebook and flipped through pages. She said, to freedom, may it taste as sweet as this whiskey. Grace closed her eyes. When she opened them again, everything looked sharper, clearer. The fog that had been clouding her mind since she woke up lifted, and what remained was crystalline rage. I want to press charges, she said, against all of them. That's already happening, Detective Brennan assured her. The DA is pursuing attempted murder charges for all 6 defendants. Conspiracy, assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment. Will it stick? The charges? With the text messages, the security footage, your testimony? The detective allowed herself a small, grim smile. Oh yes, it'll stick. Tyler stood and walked to the door. I need to step outside for a minute. Tyler, I'll be right outside. I just need, his voice cracked. I need a minute. He left before Grace could respond. Through the window in the door, she could see him lean against the hallway wall, his shoulders shaking. Your brother loves you very much, Detective Brennan said quietly. I know. Grace looked down at her hands. They were bandaged, defensive wounds, Hendricks had called them. He's the one who taught me to fight back. Smart brother. All my brothers are smart. And they're all, Grace paused, they're all going to be very angry when they get here. Your brothers are Navy SEALs? 6 of them are. One's FBI now. Detective Brennan's eyebrows rose. 7 brothers, all military or law enforcement. Yes. Mrs. Sullivan, I need to be very clear about something. The detective leaned forward, her expression serious. Your brothers cannot take the law into their own hands. I understand they're angry. I understand they want justice. But if they do anything at all to the defendants, it could jeopardize this case. I know, Grace said. But even as she said it, she thought about Austin, her youngest brother. Austin had a temper. Always had. And Blake, the explosives expert, who solved problems by blowing them up. I need you to control them, Detective Brennan said. Can you do that? Grace thought about that. Could she control 7 highly trained warriors who just learned their sister was nearly murdered? Their pregnant sister, beaten unconscious by a gang of women while her husband watched? I can try, she said finally. But detective, they're not the ones you should be worried about. No? No, I said. Grace met the detective's eyes. You should be worried about me. Something flickered in Detective Brennan's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. What do you mean? I mean I survived, Grace said softly. I survived, and my daughter survived. And now I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what Derek and Vanessa did. I'm going to testify. I'm going to tell the truth, and I'm going to watch them go to prison. That's the right answer, Detective Brennan said, standing. I'll let you rest now, but Grace, I'll be back tomorrow with more questions. And I'll need you to look at photos, identify the women who attacked you. I can do that. After the detective left, Grace was alone with her thoughts. The monitors beeped steadily. Somewhere down the hall, someone was crying. Another broken person in another room, fighting their own battles. Grace touched her belly gently. I'm sorry, she whispered to her daughter. I'm so sorry I brought you into this. But we're going to be okay. I promise. We're going to be better than okay. The baby kicked, a strong, firm kick against Grace's palm. That's my girl, Grace murmured. Fighter, just like your uncle's. The door opened. Tyler came back in, his eyes red but his expression calmer. The others are landing in 2 hours. Ryan's flight gets in first, then Connor's. Blake, Hunter, and Carson are driving up together. Austin's on emergency leave. His commander expedited it. That's a lot of Mitchell boys descending on one hospital, Grace said. Yeah. Tyler managed a ghost of a smile. The ICU nurse already looks terrified. Good. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Tyler held her hand, thumb rubbing gentle circles on her wrist. It was something he'd done since they were kids. When she'd had nightmares, when she'd been sick, when life got too big and scary. That simple touch that said, I'm here. You're not alone. Ty? Grace said finally. Yeah? Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't do anything stupid. None of you. No revenge. No vigilante justice. No midnight visits to the jail. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Gracie, Promise me, please. I need you guys here. I need you safe and legal and not in prison yourselves. We're not going to let them get away with this. They won't, Grace said firmly. The law will handle it. Detective Brennan said the charges will stick. They're going to prison, Ty. All of them. Not long enough. Maybe not, but long enough that everyone knows what they did. Long enough that Derek's name is destroyed. That's what I want. Not revenge. Justice, Mom. Tyler squeezed her hand. You're stronger than me. No, Grace said. I'm just tired of being a victim. The Mitchell boys arrived like a military operation. Ryan came first just before dawn. He walked into Grace's room with the quiet confidence of a man who'd led teams through hostile territory. At 38, he was the oldest brother, and it showed in the gray threaded through his dark hair. He took one look at Grace and his jaw tightened. Hey, Gracie, he said softly, coming to her bedside. Hey, Rye. He kissed her forehead carefully, avoiding the stitches. How's our girl? Grace knew he meant the baby. Stable, strong, like her mother. Connor arrived an hour later, still wearing his FBI badge on his belt. At 36, he had the same sharp eyes as Ryan, but with a harder edge. Years of investigating crimes had given him a cynicism that military service alone hadn't. I've already made some calls, Connor said instead of hello. The DA is a friend of mine. This case is going to get priority. Connor, Grace started, no arguments. You're my sister. That means this gets handled right. Blake showed up at 8 a.m. with Hunter and Carson. The three of them filled the hospital room with their presence. Blake, the explosives expert, looked like he wanted to detonate something. Hunter, the intelligence specialist, was already on his phone pulling up information. And Carson, her twin, looked at Grace and started crying. Don't, Grace said, her own eyes welling up. If you cry, I'll cry, and it hurts too much to cry. Carson crossed the room in 3 strides and gathered her as carefully as he could. I'm going to kill him, he whispered against her hair. I'm going to actually kill him. No, you're not. Grace, you're going to be here. With me. That's what I need. Austin arrived last, just before 9. At 26, he was the baby of the family, though you wouldn't know it to look at him. He'd filled out in the year since joining the SEALs, all muscle and controlled aggression. He took one look at Grace's bruised face and punched the wall. Austin! Tyler grabbed his arm before he could do it again. She's pregnant, Austin snarled. They beat a pregnant woman. Our pregnant sister. I know. Where are they? Where the fuck are they? In custody, Ryan said, his voice carrying command authority. And that's where they're going to stay. We do this right, Austin. We do this legal. Legal, Austin spat the word. Legal didn't protect her. No, Grace said, and all 7 of her brothers turned to look at her. But legal will punish them. And that's what I want. The room fell silent except for the monitors. Grace looked at each of her brothers in turn. Ryan with his strategic mind, Connor with his federal connections, Blake with his controlled violence, Hunter with his tech skills, Tyler with his medical knowledge, Carson with his twin intuition, Austin with his rage, 7 Navy SEALs, 6 SEALs and 1 FBI agent, 7 men who would move mountains for her, and she was going to need every one of them. I need you to listen, Grace said. All of you. What happened to me, it was planned. For weeks. Derek and his mistress and her friends, they planned it. They had texts, evidence. They're going to prison. Not fast enough, Blake muttered. Maybe not, but they're going, and I need you guys to let the system work. The system is broken, Austin said. Maybe, but it's what we have. Grace shifted in bed, wincing as her ribs protested. Look, I know what you're thinking. I know what you want to do, but I'm asking you, begging you not to. Don't give them ammunition. Don't give their lawyers anything to use against us. She's right, Connor said reluctantly. Any hint of witness intimidation or vigilante justice, and defense attorneys will have a field day. So we do nothing? Austin's voice rose. We just sit here and we protect her, Ryan cut in, his commander voice. The one that ended arguments. We rotate shifts. Someone's with Grace at all times. We make sure she's safe, she's comfortable. She has everything she needs. I'm in a hospital, Grace pointed out. I'm pretty safe here. Hospitals have visitors, Hunter said, looking up from his phone. And the media's already picking up the story. What? 6 arrests including a pharmaceutical sales rep, attempted murder of a pregnant woman. The press loves this stuff. Hunter turned his phone around to show her. The local news website had the story on the front page. Woman found beaten in hospital parking lot. 6 arrested including husband. Grace's stomach churned. They have our names? Not yet. They will though. Public record once charges are filed. Great, Grace muttered. Just what I needed. My attempted murder going viral. We'll control what we can, Ryan said. But Hunter's right. We need security. Hospital staff only. No press. No strangers. I'll talk to hospital administration, Connor said. Get us authorized as family. All of us. Dr. Hendricks chose that moment to enter, stopping short when she saw 7 large men filling her patient's room. I see the cavalry has arrived. Ma'am, Ryan said, because good military men always respected medical personnel. We're Grace's brothers. All 7 of you? Yes, ma'am. Dr. Hendricks looked at Grace. Well, you certainly have backup. Too much backup, Grace said. They're going to smother me. Better than the alternative, Tyler said quietly. The doctor's expression softened. Gentlemen, I'm glad you're here, but I need to examine Grace and discuss her treatment plan. Family can stay, but maybe not all at once. We'll rotate out, Ryan said. 2 at a time. I'll stay, Tyler said. Me too, Carson added. The others filed out reluctantly. Grace could hear them in the hallway, voices low and angry. Planning. Strategizing. Dr. Hendricks checked Grace's vitals and examined her injuries. The swelling around your eye is going down. Ribs will take 4 to 6 weeks to heal. The baby, she paused. Let's do another ultrasound. I want to see how she's doing. 15 minutes later, Grace was watching her daughter on a screen. The baby moved, hiccuped, kicked. Strong heartbeat, Dr. Hendricks said. Movement is good, but Grace, you need to understand something. The trauma to your abdomen was severe. Even though the baby's okay right now, there's a risk of complications later. Premature labor, placental abruption. We'll monitor you closely. What does that mean, monitoring? It means regular ultrasounds, bed rest for the next few weeks. No stress, which I know is impossible given the circumstances, but you need to take it easy. I can do that. Can you? Dr. Hendricks gave her a knowing look. With 7 protective brothers and a trial coming up? Grace smiled despite everything. I'll try. After the doctor left, Carson moved to sit on the edge of her bed. He didn't say anything, just took her hand. I knew something was wrong, he said finally. About a month ago. You called me, remember? Said Derek was being distant. Grace did remember. She'd called Carson late one night when Derek was supposedly working late. Again. She'd been lonely and scared and needing her twins' reassurance. You told me to trust my gut, Grace said. I should have said more. Should have flown out here. Should have. You couldn't have known, Cars. Maybe, but I knew Derek was an asshole. I knew that years ago. Tyler snorted from his chair by the window. We all knew. Then why didn't anyone say anything, Grace asked. Because you loved him, Carson said simply, and we didn't want to hurt you. Grace thought about that, thought about all the times her brothers had bitten their tongues around Derek, all the tense family dinners, the awkward silences. They'd known. They'd all known Derek wasn't good enough for her, and they'd stayed quiet because she'd seemed happy. I wasn't happy, Grace said out loud. I thought I was, but looking back, I haven't been happy in a long time. You will be again, Carson promised. We'll make sure of it. The door opened. Hunter stuck his head in. Detective's back. Wants to talk to Grace. Says it's important. A Detective Brennan entered carrying a laptop. Her expression was grim. Grace, I'm sorry to bother you again, but something's come to light. Something you need to see. What is it? The detective opened the laptop and turned it toward Grace. On screen was security footage. Black and white. A apartment building hallway. This is from Vanessa Brooks' building, Detective Brennan said. The footage from Tuesday night. Grace's heart started pounding. I don't know if I want to see. You need to, the detective said gently. There's something here that changes everything. She pressed play. Grace watched herself walk down the hallway, watched herself knock on Vanessa's door, watched Vanessa answer with that predatory smile. The timestamp showed 7:03 p.m. The video jumped forward, 7:20 p.m. The door remained closed. Jump, 7:42 p.m. The door opened. Vanessa and Tiffany emerged dragging something, dragging someone. Grace watched herself being dragged by her hair, unconscious, bleeding, her dress torn, her face barely recognizable under the swelling and blood. Derek stepped out next. He looked both ways down the hall, looked directly at the camera, looked away. He helped the women carry Grace to the elevator. The timestamp showed 7:44 p.m., 17 minutes. They'd beaten her for 17 minutes. There's more, Detective Brennan said. The video jumped again. 8:05 p.m. All 6 of them returned to the hallway. Laughing, actually laughing. Vanessa said something. The video had no sound, but Grace could read her lips. That was easier than I thought. Then Vanessa pulled something from her pocket. Cash. She counted it out. 1,000 to each woman. And then Derek held out his hand. Vanessa put cash in his palm. He counted it, smiled, pocketed the money they'd paid him. After he'd helped them beat his pregnant wife, they'd paid him. Grace couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was seeing. How much? She heard herself ask. 5,000 total, Detective Brennan said. 1,000 for each woman, 2,000 for Derek. He got paid more, Grace whispered. He got paid more because he delivered me to them. Carson stood abruptly and left the room. Tyler followed. Through the door, Grace could hear them, muffled shouts, someone hitting something. I'm sorry you had to see that, Detective Brennan said, but the DA needs your confirmation. That's your husband in the video? Yes. And he accepted money after you were assaulted? Yes. Grace, this changes the charges. This isn't just attempted murder anymore. This is conspiracy with financial motivation. The detective paused. This is the kind of case that puts people away for decades. Good, Grace thought. Good. But out loud she said, I want to testify, whatever you need, whenever you need it. I'll testify. You're sure it'll be public? The video will be played in court. Your injuries will be documented. The defense will try to discredit you. Let them try, Grace said. Her voice was calm, cold. I survived what they did to me. I can survive a courtroom. Detective Brennan smiled. I believe you can. It was the middle of the night when Grace finally broke down. She'd held it together through another round of medical examinations, through her brothers taking shifts at her door like military sentries, through her mother's arrival. Evelyn Mitchell, former Marine Corps nurse, who'd taken one look at Grace's injuries and gone stone-cold silent. That silence was worse than crying. Evelyn didn't cry. She planned. But now at 3 a.m., Grace was alone. The hospital was quiet except for the distant beeping of monitors and the soft shuffle of nurses making their rounds. Tyler was asleep in the chair by the window, his head tilted back at an uncomfortable angle. He'd refused to leave. Grace's hand rested on her belly. The baby was moving, little flutters and kicks that reminded Grace she wasn't alone in this. She'd survived. They'd survived. But the video played on loop in her mind. Derek's face as he pocketed that cash. The casual way he'd helped drag her unconscious body. The smile on Vanessa's face. 17 minutes. In 17 minutes, 6 people had tried to erase her baby, erase everything Grace had built. And Derek, the man she'd married, the man she'd trusted with her life, had sold her for $2,000. The tears came silently at first, then harder. Her shoulders shook. Her ribs screamed in protest, but she couldn't stop. 4 years of marriage, 4 years of thinking she wasn't good enough, trying harder, being quieter, taking up less space. 4 years of slow poison. Gracie, Tyler was awake instantly, crossing to her bed. Hey, what do you need? What hurts? Everything, Grace sobbed. Everything hurts. I'll get the nurse. No. Grace grabbed his hand. Not that kind of hurt. Ty, I was so stupid. How did I not see? How did I not know? Tyler sat on the edge of her bed. careful of the wires and tubes. You weren't stupid. He lied. He manipulated. That's what abusers do. But I should have known. I should have. Stop. Tyler's voice was firm. Listen to me. You are not responsible for what he did. You are not responsible for being hurt. The only people responsible are the ones who planned it and executed it. He was my husband. He was a monster wearing a husband mask. Grace hiccuped, trying to catch her breath. The baby kicked hard, a reminder. A promise, you're still here. We're still here. What if I can't do this? Grace whispered. What if I can't be a mom after everything that's happened? You already are a mom, Tyler said. You've been protecting her from the moment you knew she existed. You protected her during the attack. Your body took the damage so she wouldn't have to. That's what mothers do. I'm scared. I know. What if they don't go to prison? What if the charges don't stick? What if they will? Tyler said with absolute certainty. We have video evidence, text messages, medical documentation, witness testimony. Grace, they're going to prison. All of them. For how long? Long enough. But was any amount of time long enough? Could any sentence make up for what they'd done? Grace didn't know. She just knew she was tired. Tired of hurting, tired of being afraid, tired of the sharp edges of betrayal cutting into her every time she breathed. Try to sleep, Tyler said softly. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Grace closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come. Instead, her mind wandered through memories, picking them apart like scabs, looking for signs she'd missed, red flags she'd ignored. Derek insisting she quit her nursing job when they got married. I make enough for both of us, he'd said. You can relax, focus on the house. Grace had thought it was romantic. Now she saw it for what it was, isolation, Derek's irritation when she made plans with friends. Again, you just saw them last month. She'd thought he wanted to spend time with her. Now she understood it was control, Derek's dismissal of her concerns. You're too sensitive. You're overreacting. You're being paranoid. She'd thought maybe she was. Now she knew it was gaslighting. Little by little, Derek had carved away pieces of her job, her friends, her confidence, until all that remained was a woman who second-guessed everything, who apologized constantly, who made herself smaller to accommodate his moods. But he hadn't killed her. That's what he'd wanted, to kill her and the baby, collect insurance money and move on with Vanessa. But Grace had survived, and in surviving, she'd found something Derek had tried to destroy. Herself. The door opened quietly. Ryan slipped in, nodded to Tyler, and took up position by the window. Shift change. Her brothers operated like a well-oiled machine, each one taking their turn standing guard. Can't sleep? Ryan asked softly. No. Want to talk about it? Grace considered that. Ryan was the oldest, the leader, the one who'd basically raised her and Carson after their dad died when they were 10. Ryan had been 16, suddenly responsible for siblings while their mother worked double shifts. Do you remember when I told you I was marrying Derek? Grace asked. Ryan's expression didn't change. I remember. You didn't like him? No. Why didn't you say something? Ryan was quiet for a long moment. I did say something. I told you to be careful, that I didn't trust him, that something felt off. Grace did remember that, vaguely. She'd been so caught up in wedding planning, in the excitement of starting a new life. Ryan's concerns had seemed like overprotective brother paranoia. I should have listened, Grace said. Maybe. But you were in love, or you thought you were, and I didn't have proof. Just instinct. Military instinct. Yeah, the same instinct that has kept me alive through 3 deployments. The same instinct that's kept all your brothers alive. Ryan moved closer. We all felt it, Gracie. Every single one of us. Derek was wrong for you, but you seemed happy. I wasn't. We know that now. I wasted 4 years. No, Ryan said firmly. You survived 4 years, and now you are free. Free. Grace turned the word over in her mind. Was she free, with a trial looming, a baby coming, and nightmares already taking root? I don't feel free, she admitted. You will, Ryan promised. It takes time, but you'll heal. You'll rebuild. and we'll be here for every step. All 7 of you? All 7 of us. You were stuck with us, kid. Grace managed a small smile. Could be worse. Could be a lot worse. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Tyler dozed in his chair again. Ryan stood at the window, watching the parking lot below with the same intensity he probably watched hostile territory during missions. Ryan, Grace said finally. Yeah? Thank you for coming, for being here. I know you had to drop everything. Stop, Ryan cut her off. Your family. That's not a choice, that's a fact. Family. Grace had spent 4 years being told by Derek that she was too dependent on her family, that she needed to grow up and stop running to her brothers for everything, that real marriages didn't need outside interference. Now she understood what Derek had really meant. Isolated wives are easier to come under control. I'm going to need you guys, Grace said, all of you, when the baby comes. When I'm trying to figure out how to do this alone, you're not alone, Ryan said. You're never going to be alone again. 2 days later, Grace insisted on watching the arraignment. Dr. Hendricks wasn't happy about it, but Grace was adamant. She needed to see them, needed to watch Derek and Vanessa and all those women face the first consequences of what they'd done. Video link from your hospital room, Dr. Hendricks finally conceded, and I'm monitoring your vitals the entire time. If your blood pressure spikes too high, we're shutting it down. Deal. The hospital set up a laptop on a rolling table. All 7 brothers crowded into the room. Evelyn stood by the window and arms crossed, Marine Corps straight. Connor had arranged everything with his FBI contacts. Grace could watch without having to be there in person. At 9 a.m., the feed connected. The courtroom appeared on screen. Courtroom number 3, County Criminal Court. Grace recognized it from the news. High-profile cases were held there. 6 defendants were brought in. Not together, they entered through different doors, each flanked by bailiffs. Grace watched them file to the defense table. Vanessa looked smaller on screen. Her perfect hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, orange jumpsuit. But that smirk, that predatory smirk, was still there. Tiffany looked scared. Her Instagram perfect confidence was gone. She kept glancing at the judge, then at her lawyer, then at Vanessa. Amber stared straight ahead, emotionless, like she was waiting in line at the DMV, not facing attempted murder charges. Stephanie, the bartender, looked angry. Her jaw was clenched so tight Grace could see it even through the video feed. Brianna, the nursing student, was crying, silent tears running down her face. Her shoulders shook. And Nicole, the divorced one who hated pregnant women, looked defiant, head high, eyes cold. Derek entered last, separate from the women. His own lawyer beside him. He'd aged 10 years in 3 days. His hair was disheveled, his suit wrinkled. When he sat down, he immediately looked at the camera. Grace knew he couldn't see her through the video feed, but it felt like he was looking right at her. She didn't look away. The judge entered, the Honorable Patricia Morrison. According to the nameplate on her bench, she was in her 60s, black, with an expression that suggested she'd seen it all and wasn't impressed by any of it. All rise, everyone stood. Be seated. The bailiff read the charges. His voice was flat, professional, but the words were anything but boring. The state versus Derek Sullivan, Vanessa Brooks, Tiffany Reed, Amber Cole, Stephanie Walsh, Brianna Hunt, and Nicole Carter. Charges include attempted murder in the first degree, conspiracy to commit murder, assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment, and criminal battery. Grace's hand rested on her belly. Child endangerment. They'd endangered her daughter. How do the defendants plead? Judge Morrison asked. Derek's lawyer stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. One by one, each defense attorney stood and entered the same plea. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Grace's blood pressure monitor beeped. Tyler glanced at it, then at her. She shook her head. She was fine. She was staying. The prosecutor stood next. Marcus Bradford. Connor had vouched for him. Ex-military, former JAG lawyer, now civilian prosecutor with a 98% conviction rate. Your Honor, the state requests remand without bail for all defendants. The charges are severe. The evidence is substantial, and the defendants pose a clear flight risk. Objection, Derek's lawyer said immediately. My client has no criminal record. He has strong ties to the community. Your client conspired to murder his pregnant wife for financial gain, Marcus Bradford interrupted. He participated in an assault that nearly killed her and their unborn child. He accepted payment for delivering the victim to her attackers. Silence in the courtroom. Judge Morrison looked at Derek, really looked at him. Is that true, Mr. Sullivan? Did you accept money? Derek's lawyer started to answer, but the judge held up a hand. I asked your client. Derek stood slowly. Your Honor, there's been a misunderstanding. Answer the question. Did you accept money after your wife was assaulted? Derek opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Yes, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't. Sit down, Judge Morrison said coldly. She turned to Vanessa's lawyer. Your client organized this attack, correct? Allegedly, Your Honor. We have text messages detailing the planning. We have security footage showing the execution. We have the victim's testimony. The judge's voice could have cut glass. This isn't alleged. This is documented. Vanessa's lawyer wisely said nothing. Judge Morrison reviewed the documents in front of her. The courtroom was silent except for the shuffling of paper and Brianna's quiet crying. Bail is denied, the judge said finally. All defendants will remain in custody pending trial. This case is remanded to Superior Court. Trial date, she checked her calendar. 3 months, January 15th. 3 months. Grace had 3 months before she'd have to testify. 3 months before she'd have to relive everything in front of a jury. 3 months before justice. Your Honor, Tiffany's lawyer stood abruptly. I'd like to request a conference with the prosecution. My client wishes to cooperate. The courtroom erupted. Vanessa's head snapped toward Tiffany. Even through the video feed, Grace could see the fury in her eyes. Order, Judge Morrison said, banging her gavel once. Mr. Bradford, are you interested in cooperation from Ms. Reed? Potentially, Marcus said carefully, depending on what she has to offer. Then you'll work that out amongst yourselves. This arraignment is concluded. All defendants are remanded to county custody. Another bang of the gavel. We're adjourned. The video feed cut out as the defendants were led away. Grace sat back against her pillows, breathing hard. Tiffany's going to flip, Connor said with satisfaction. First domino. Will that help or hurt the case? Evelyn asked. Help. If she testifies, we get insider details. The planning, the execution. Who did what? Connor looked at Grace. It strengthens the case against everyone else. Including Derek, Grace said, especially Derek. Blake, who had been silent until now, cracked his knuckles. 3 months until trial. 3 months, Ryan confirmed. And then? And then they go to prison, Grace said. All of them. 1 week after the arraignment, Grace was moved from the ICU to a regular room. Then 3 days later, Dr. Hendricks cleared her for transfer to a rehabilitation facility. Your ribs need time to heal, the doctor explained. Your baby needs monitoring. You need physical therapy to regain full mobility. The rehab center has a high-risk OB on staff. You'll be in good hands. Good hands. Grace almost laughed. She'd thought she was in good hands when she married Derek. The rehab center was nice. Private room, view of a garden, physical therapy gym. It wasn't home, but it was better than the hospital. Her brothers took shifts staying with her, and Ryan and Connor had to get back to work eventually, but they promised to return for the trial. Blake, Hunter, and Tyler arranged their schedules to rotate coverage. Carson never left. Austin, technically still on emergency leave, haunted the hallways like a guard dog. He's going to get himself in trouble, Grace told Carson one afternoon during physical therapy. Probably, Carson agreed, spotting her as she walked the parallel bars. Grace's legs shook. A week ago, she could barely stand. Now she could walk 10 feet before needing to rest. Progress, her physical therapist called it. It felt like failure to Grace. 5 more feet, the therapist, a cheerful woman named Sandra, encouraged. You're doing great. Grace gritted her teeth and took another step. Her ribs protested. Everything protested. But she kept moving. 5 more feet. Rest. Turn around. 5 more feet back. By the end of the session, Grace was drenched in sweat and shaking. Excellent work, Sandra said. Same time tomorrow? Yeah, Grace managed. Back in her room, Carson helped her into bed. The baby kicked, strong and insistent. She's telling you to rest, Carson said, his hand on Grace's belly, feeling his niece move. She's telling me to get stronger, Grace corrected. She wants a mom who can protect her. You already protected her. You survived. Surviving isn't enough. I need to be able to take care of her. On my own. Carson's expression darkened. You're not on your own. You know what I mean. You guys can't stay forever. You have lives. Wasabal and had deployments. Grace looked at her twin brother. I need to be able to do this alone if I have to. You won't have to. But if I do, Grace. Carson took her hand. Stop borrowing trouble. One day at a time, remember? One day at a time. Their mom's favorite saying, one day at a time, was how Evelyn had survived being a single mother to 8 kids. How she'd put herself through nursing school while working full-time. How she dealt with 7 sons joining the military and her only daughter marrying an asshole. One day at a time. Okay, Grace said, one day at a time. There was a knock on the door. Hunter poked his head in. You have a visitor? Says her name is Catherine Hunt. Grace frowned. I don't know anyone named Brianna Hunt's mother, Hunter clarified. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Absolutely not, Carson said immediately. She wants to talk to Grace, says it's important. I don't care if... Let her in, Grace interrupted. Gracie, I want to hear what she has to say. Carson and Hunter exchanged glances. Neither looked happy, but after a moment, Hunter nodded and disappeared. He returned with a woman in her 50s. Catherine Hunt looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She wore jeans and a cardigan and clutched her purse like a lifeline. Mrs. Sullivan, she said, her voice trembling, thank you for seeing me. I know I have no right. You don't, Carson said flatly. I know. Catherine Hunt's eyes filled with tears. But I had to come. I had to tell you how sorry I am, how horrified, how... Her voice broke. My daughter helped beat you. My daughter, who I raised to help people, to care for people. She hurt you. Grace studied the woman, saw genuine anguish there, genuine shame. Why are you here? Grace asked. Brianna wants to testify. Her lawyer worked out a deal with the prosecutor. She'll tell them everything, what Vanessa planned, who did what, all of it, in exchange for a reduced sentence. I know, Grace said. Mr. Bradford told me. I wanted you to know that she's sick about what she did. She cries every night. She can't sleep. Catherine took a shuddering breath. She wants to make it right. She can't make it right, Grace said quietly. What's done is done. I know, but maybe her testimony can help, can make sure the others go to prison for a long time. Grace looked at Carson, then at Hunter. Both brothers looked like they wanted to throw Catherine Hunt out the window. But Grace thought about the trial, thought about Marcus Bradford explaining how insider testimony would strengthen the case, thought about Derek's face when Brianna detailed exactly what happened in that apartment. I'll accept her testimony, Grace said finally. Grace, Carson started. Not for Brianna, Grace continued, not for forgiveness or redemption or any of that. I'll accept it because it helps put Vanessa and Derek away for longer. Catherine Hunt sagged with relief. Thank you. Thank you so much. But Mrs. Hunt, Grace's voice hardened, your daughter still goes to prison. Maybe not for as long as the others, but she goes. She helped plan to kill my baby. That's not something I can forgive. I understand, I do, and I hope someday you can heal from this. You and your daughter both. After Catherine Hunt left, Carson exploded. What the hell were you thinking? That woman's daughter tried to kill you. I know exactly what she did, Grace said calmly. That's why I'm using her. Using her? Her testimony makes the case stronger. Makes sure Derek and Vanessa get maximum sentences. That's what matters. Grace met her brother's eyes. I'm not doing this for revenge, Cars. I'm doing this for justice. There's a difference. Carson stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. When did you get so strategic? I've always been strategic. I just forgot for a while. Over the next few days, Grace settled into a routine. Physical therapy every morning. Lunch with whichever brother was on shift. Afternoon nap, the baby demanded it. Evening visits from the high-risk OB. Sleep, if nightmares allowed it. Detective Brennan came twice more with questions. Marcus Bradford, the prosecutor, came to prepare Grace for testimony. The defense will try to rattle you, Marcus warned. They'll ask about your marriage, your fights with Derek. They'll try to make it seem like you provoked this somehow. I didn't provoke my own attempted murder, Grace said dryly. I know that, you know that, but they'll still try. Can you handle it? Grace thought about that. Could she sit in a witness box and describe her worst moment while Derek's lawyer tried to tear her apart? Yes, she said, I can handle it. You're sure, because if you break down on the stand, I won't break down. Grace's voice was steel. I survived what they did to me. I can survive questions about it. Marcus studied her, then nodded. I believe you. 2 weeks into her rehab stay, Grace filed for divorce. Tyler served the papers at the county jail where Derek was being held. How'd he react? Grace asked when Tyler returned. Signed them without reading them. Asked if you'd drop the charges if he gave you full custody. Grace laughed, actually laughed. He thinks I want custody negotiated with him? He thinks he has any parental rights after trying to kill our child? Apparently. What did you say? Tyler's grin was savage. I told him to rot in hell. Progress came in small victories. Grace walking to the bathroom without help. Grace showering alone. Grace eating a full meal. The baby growing stronger. Her kicks more insistent. Grace cutting her hair short. A symbolic fresh start. Grace looking in the mirror and recognizing herself again. 3 weeks after the attack, Grace went apartment hunting. Carson drove her. They looked at 3 places before she found it. A 2-bedroom on the 4th floor with good security and a view of the park. It's perfect, Grace said, standing in the empty living room. It's tiny, Carson said. It's mine. Derek never set foot here. He never touched anything here. This is all mine. Carson understood. When can you move in? Doctor says 2 more weeks of rehab. Then I'm cleared for outpatient care. We'll get it furnished before you're discharged. Cars, don't argue. Let us help. Grace looked at her twin brother, saw the desperation in his eyes. He needed to do this, needed to feel useful, needed to build something good after so much bad. Okay, she said. Help me make it home. Moving day came 6 weeks after the attack. Grace was 32 weeks pregnant now, her belly round and firm. The baby kicked constantly as if to say, I'm here, I'm still here. All 7 brothers showed up with a moving truck. Not that Grace had much to move. She'd started from scratch. New furniture, new dishes, new everything. Nothing from the house she'd shared with Derek. That life was over. Where do you want the crib? Blake asked, carrying the box up 4 flights of stairs. The elevator was broken, of course. Nursery, Grace said, 2nd door on the left. She watched her brothers transform the empty apartment into a home. Ryan assembled furniture with military precision. Connor installed a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. Blake and Hunter argued about the proper way to hang pictures. Tyler organized the kitchen. Carson painted the nursery pale yellow, gender-neutral, and cheerful. Austin stood guard at the door like someone might storm in at any moment. Louis, you can relax, Grace said. No one knows I'm here yet. Yet, Austin repeated. I'll relax when they're all in prison. Evelyn arrived with enough food to feed an army. You need to eat, she said, filling the refrigerator. You're eating for 2. I know, Mom. And resting. The doctor said bed rest. Light activity, not bed rest. Grace, I'm fine. Better than fine. I'm free. Evelyn stopped arranging Tupperware and looked at her daughter. Really looked at her. You are, aren't you? Yeah, Grace said. I really am. By evening, the apartment was livable. Furniture assembled, pictures hung, clothes put away. The nursery ready and waiting. Grace stood in the doorway of her daughter's room and felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest. Hope. Thank you, she said to her brothers, gathered in the living room. All of you. I couldn't have done this without you. You could have, Ryan said, but you didn't have to. They ordered pizza, ate sitting on the floor because Grace's furniture wasn't all delivered yet. Laughed and joked, and for a few hours, forgot about trials and testimony and attempted murder charges. For a few hours, they were just family. After everyone left, everyone except Carson, who'd appointed himself unofficial guardian, Grace stood at her living room window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Derek sat in a jail cell, Vanessa too, and all those women who'd laughed while beating her. Soon they'd face justice. But tonight, Grace just breathed. The trial date approached with terrifying speed. 3 months felt like both forever and no time at all. Grace spent her days preparing. Physical therapy to rebuild strength. Therapy with a counselor who specialized in trauma. Meetings with Marcus Bradford to review her testimony. The defense will call you a liar, Marcus warned again. They'll say you and Derek had marital problems, that you were unstable during pregnancy, that you made this up for attention. Let them, Grace said. We have a video evidence. Video shows the attack. It doesn't show what led to it. Defense will argue you provoked them somehow. How do you provoke 6 people to plan your murder for 3 weeks? That's exactly what you'll say on the stand. Grace memorized her statement, practiced staying calm, practiced not reacting when Marcus played devil's advocate and asked horrible questions. Did you ever hit your husband? No. Did you ever threaten him? No. Did you know about his affair with Vanessa Brooks? Not until that night. Are you sure maybe you suspected? I suspected nothing. I trusted my husband. Over and over until Grace could answer without flinching, without crying, without rage. Just facts. Clear, cold, undeniable facts. 8 months pregnant now. Grace's belly was huge. She moved slowly, waddled more than walked. The baby was running out of room, her kicks and jabs more insistent. Any day now, her OB said at a checkup, but preferably after the trial. Agreed, Grace said. She needs to wait. The baby kicked hard, as if objecting. I don't think she's taking requests, the OB said with a smile. Grace pressed a hand to the spot where her daughter was protesting. Just a few more weeks, baby girl, then you can make your entrance. Christmas came and went. Grace spent it with her mother and brothers. No tree, no decorations, just family and good food and the knowledge that next Christmas, she'd have her daughter. Next Christmas, Derek would have been in prison for almost a year. New Year's Eve arrived. Grace stood on her tiny balcony despite the cold, watching fireworks explode over the city. A new year, a new beginning. Behind her, Carson appeared with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. Happy New Year, Gracie. Happy New Year, Cars. Thinking about the trial? Trying not to. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Grace sipped her hot chocolate. I know, I want it to be over. I want to move forward. Stop looking back. 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks, Grace repeated. And then it ends. January 15th dawned cold and gray. Grace woke at 5 a.m., unable to sleep. Her daughter, apparently sensing her mother's anxiety, kicked and squirmed. I know, Grace murmured, hand on belly. Big day. Carson was already awake, making breakfast. Eat, he ordered, sliding eggs and toast across the counter. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway, you need strength. Grace forced down breakfast, showered, dressed in the outfit Marcus had recommended. Simple black dress, low heels, minimal jewelry. Nothing flashy, nothing that could be misinterpreted. You look perfect, Evelyn said, arriving at 7 to help with hair and makeup. Professional, composed, strong. Strong, Grace held on to that word. The courthouse was surrounded by media. News vans, cameras, reporters shouting questions. Don't answer, Connor reminded her as they pulled up. Don't even look at them. Her brothers formed a protective corridor from the car to the courthouse door. Grace walked between them, Ryan on one side and Blake on the other. Camera flashes exploded. Reporters surged forward. Grace, do you have a statement? Did your husband abuse you before? How's the baby? Grace kept her eyes forward and walked. Inside, the courthouse was quieter. Security, metal detectors, Marcus Bradford waiting in a conference room. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. Remember what we practiced? Clear answers. No emotion. Just facts. I remember. The courtroom was packed. Every seat filled. Grace spotted reporters in the gallery, sketch artists, curious onlookers. This was the case everyone was talking about. Pregnant woman nearly beaten to death by husband's mistress and friends. People loved a good tragedy. The defendants were brought in. Grace saw them for the first time since the attack. All six dressed in civilian clothes, lawyers at their sides. Derek looked smaller, defeated. He glanced at Grace and quickly looked away. Vanessa stared straight ahead, chin high, defiant to the end. The others looked scared, as they should be. All rise. Judge Morrison entered, same judge from the arraignment. She surveyed the packed courtroom with a stern expression. Be seated. We're here for the trial of the state versus Sullivan, Brooks, Reed, Cole, Walsh, Hunt, and Carter. Opening statements will begin now. Marcus Bradford stood, tall, confident, every inch the military lawyer he used to be. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about betrayal, about cruelty, about a group of people who planned and executed an attempt to murder a pregnant woman for money. He paused. Grace Sullivan was 6 months pregnant when her husband lured her to his mistress's apartment. What happened next was 17 minutes of violence so severe that doctors didn't think she'd survive. But she did survive, and today she's going to tell you exactly what happened. The defense attorneys gave their opening statements. Grace barely heard them. Words like misunderstanding and tragic accident and rush to judgment. Lies. All lies. The state calls Brianna Hunt. Grace watched Brianna walk to the witness stand. The nursing student looked sick, pale and shaking. After being sworn in, Marcus approached. Miss Hunt, you were charged alongside the other defendants in this case. Is that correct? Yes. You've agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence? Yes. Tell the jury what happened on the evening of October 8th. Brianna's voice shook. Vanessa Brooks contacted me 3 weeks before. Said she needed help teaching someone a lesson. That someone was Vanessa's boyfriend's wife. She was pregnant and Vanessa wanted her to lose the baby. Gasped from the gallery. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Order! What did you say when Vanessa Brooks made this request? Marcus asked. I said, Brianna's voice cracked. I said I'd help. She offered me $1,000. I needed the money for school. What happened on October 8th? We met at Vanessa's apartment. All 6 of us. Vanessa explained the plan. Derek Sullivan would text his wife and get her to come over. When she arrived, we'd beat her until she miscarried. More gasps. Judge Morrison didn't bother calling for order this time. Did anyone object to this plan? Marcus asked. No. Tiffany seemed excited. Amber was calculating how much force to use. Stephanie and Nicole were just into it, ready. And you? I was nervous, but I went along with it. What happened when Grace Sullivan arrived? Brianna detailed everything, the setup, the first push, Grace falling, the systematic beating, who kicked where, who pulled her hair, who stomped on her pregnant belly. Grace sat through it all, face blank. Inside, she was screaming, but outward, she remained composed. Where was Derek Sullivan during the assault? Marcus asked. By the window, watching. Did he try to stop it? No. Did he say anything? Once. Grace called his name, begged him to help. He said, Brianna paused. He said, just get it over with. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel repeatedly. Order! I will clear this courtroom. Slowly, silence returned. After the assault, what happened? Marcus asked. Vanessa paid us, $1,000 each. She gave Derek $2,000. Why did Derek Sullivan receive more money? Because he delivered Grace to us. Vanessa called it a finder's fee. Marcus let that sink in. What happened to Grace Sullivan after the beating? We dragged her to Derek's car. She was unconscious, bleeding badly. Derek drove her away. Vanessa told us to go celebrate. Did you celebrate? Yes, Brianna was crying now. We went to a bar. Vanessa bought shots. We toasted to Derek's freedom. While Grace Sullivan lay dying in a hospital parking lot? Yes. Marcus turned to the jury. Let them see Brianna's tears. Let them understand the casual cruelty of it all. No further questions. The defense cross-examined, tried to paint Brianna as vindictive, as lying to save herself. But her story never wavered. She'd been there. She'd participated. She was guilty, and so were they. Other witnesses followed. The detective who investigated. The security guard who found Grace's car. The EMT who'd been first on scene. I've seen a lot of assault victims, the EMT testified. But this was attempted murder. No doubt in my mind. Dr. Hendricks testified about Grace's injuries. The jury looked sick as she described the fractured bones, the internal bleeding, the risk to the baby. Then it was time. The state calls Grace Sullivan. Grace stood. Her daughter kicked hard, as if saying, "You've got this, Mom." She walked to the witness stand on steady legs, was sworn in, sat down facing the packed courtroom, facing Derek. "Mrs. Sullivan," Marcus began gently, "tell the jury about your marriage to Derek Sullivan." Grace took a breath. "We were married 4 years ago. In the beginning, things seemed good, but slowly, Derek became controlling. He convinced me to quit my nursing job, to see my friends less, to depend on him completely." "Did he ever hurt you before October 8th? "Not physically, but emotionally, yes. He belittled me, made me feel small, made me question myself constantly." "When did you become pregnant?" "Last January. We've been trying for over a year." "How did Derek react to the news?" "At first he seemed happy, but as the pregnancy progressed, he became distant, cold. He worked late constantly, stopped touching me, stopped looking at me." "Did you know about his affair with Vanessa Brooks?" "Not until that night." Grace met Derek's eyes. He looked away. "I trusted my husband. I believed him when he said he was working late." Marcus walked her through October 8th, the text message, her excitement, the drive to Vanessa's apartment. "Tell the jury what happened when you arrived." Grace's voice was steady, clear. Vanessa answered the door. She was smiling, but it wasn't friendly. There were 5 other women inside. They were staring at me like I was prey. "What happened next?" "Tiffany Reed pushed me. I dropped the pie I'd brought. It smashed on the floor and they all laughed. Vanessa said they were celebrating my disappearance, that Derek was finally going to be free." "Where was Derek?" "Standing by the window. I looked at him. I begged him with my eyes to tell me this was a joke, but he just turned away." Grace described the attack, not graphically, not dramatically, just facts. Clear, cold facts that were somehow more horrifying because of their simplicity. "Tiffany pushed me again. I fell. Then they started kicking. I tried to protect my stomach, my baby, but there were 6 of them. I couldn't stop them all." "How long did the attack last?" 17 minutes. The security footage showed 17 minutes from when I fell to when I lost consciousness." "What do you remember about Derek during those 17 minutes?" "I called his name. I begged him to stop them. He looked at me once and said, 'Just get it over with.' Then he went back to looking out the window." Someone in the gallery gasped. Grace didn't look to see who. "What's the last thing you remember?" "Being dragged, the smell of pine trees, Derek's air freshener, darkness." "When did you wake up?" "In the ICU, 16 hours later. My brother Tyler was there. I immediately asked about my baby." "Your daughter survived?" "Yes, but she was in distress. The next 48 hours were critical. The trauma to my abdomen caused placental bruising." Grace's hand went to her belly. "The doctors said another hour and we both would have died." Marcus let that sink in. "Grace, the defense is going to suggest you provoked this attack, that marital problems led to a confrontation that got out of hand. What do you say to that?" Grace looked at the jury. "I didn't provoke 6 people to plan my murder for 3 weeks. I didn't provoke my husband to sell me for $2,000. I didn't provoke systematic violence designed to kill my baby. What happened to me was attempted murder. Premeditated. Calculated. And if I hadn't been found when I was, they would have succeeded." No further questions. Derek's attorney stood for cross-examination. His name was Richard something. Expensive suit, slick hair. He smiled at Grace like they were old friends. "Mrs. Sullivan, and you claim your marriage was perfect until Derek became controlling. But isn't it true you and Derek argued frequently?" "We had normal disagreements. All couples do." "Normal disagreements about what?" "Money sometimes, his work hours, household chores." "So there was conflict in your marriage?" "There was normal marriage conflict, not attempted murder conflict." A few people in the gallery snickered. Richard's smile tightened. "You said Derek convinced you to quit your job. But isn't it true you wanted to quit?" "No. You didn't tell your friends you were tired of nursing? I loved nursing. Derek told me I didn't need to work, that I could focus on the house, on him. And you agreed? I did. So you made that choice? I made that choice because my husband manipulated me into thinking it's what I wanted. Richard paced. Mrs. Sullivan, you have painted a picture of an abusive marriage. But if things were so bad, why didn't you leave? Grace had known this question was coming. Marcus had prepared her for it. Because I loved him, she said simply. Or I thought I did. And abusers don't show their true colors immediately. They chip away at you gradually. By the time I realized something was wrong, I'd lost the confidence to trust my own judgment. That's convenient. Objection, Marcus stood, argumentative. Sustained, Judge Morrison said. Counselor, ask questions. Don't editorialize. Richard tried a different angle. You claim you didn't know about the affair with Vanessa Brooks, but they worked together for 3 years. You never suspected? No. Never noticed Derek coming home late, smelling like perfume? He worked late often. It was pharmaceutical sales. That's normal in that industry. But you never checked his phone, his emails? I trusted my husband, Grace said. That trust was misplaced, but I had no reason to spy on him. Or maybe you knew and confronted him and things escalated? No, I learned about the affair when Vanessa told me that night. According to you. According to evidence, Grace shot back. Text messages between Derek and Vanessa detailing 3 weeks of planning, security footage showing the attack, medical records documenting my injuries. That's not my word against theirs. That's facts. Richard had no response to that. Let me ask you this, Mrs. Sullivan. You're a nurse, correct? I was. So you know how to treat injuries? Yes. Isn't it possible you exaggerated your injuries for sympathy? Grace stared at him. Are you seriously suggesting I fractured my own orbital bone? Cracked my own ribs? Beat myself bloody while 6 months pregnant? I'm suggesting your injuries may not be as severe as you claim. Objection! Marcus was on his feet. The medical records speak for themselves. This is harassment of the victim. Sustained. Mr. Walker, move on. One more question. Richard leaned against the jury box. Mrs. Sullivan, you filed for divorce immediately after the attack. Isn't it true you're using these charges to secure a favorable divorce settlement? Grace's voice could have ate frozen fire. I don't need a favorable divorce settlement. I need justice. I need the people who tried to murder me and my daughter to go to prison. That's not about money. That's about making sure they never hurt anyone else the way they hurt us. Richard had no more questions. Marcus did brief redirect, clarifying a few points. Then Grace was excused. She walked back to her seat, past Derek, past Vanessa, past all of them. Kept her head high, didn't look back. She'd done it. She'd testified. And she hadn't broken. The trial continued for 3 more days. Defense witnesses tried to paint Derek as a good man who'd made a mistake. Vanessa as a victim of her own passion. The others as women caught up in mob mentality. The jury didn't buy it. Grace could see it in their faces. The disgust when the video played. The horror when Dr. Hendricks described the injuries. The anger when Brianna testified about the planning. On day 4, closing arguments began. Marcus Bradford stood before the jury one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is simple. 6 people planned to murder Grace Sullivan for money. They executed that plan with military precision. They nearly succeeded. The only reason Grace and her daughter are alive is because someone called 911 anonymously. To this day, we don't know who made that call. But we know it wasn't any of these defendants. He pointed to Derek. Derek Sullivan sold his wife for $2,000. He watched her being beaten for 17 minutes. He helped carry her unconscious body to his car. He took his payment and went to celebrate while she lay dying. He turned to Vanessa. Vanessa Brooks organized everything. She recruited the attackers. She planned the logistics. She made sure Grace Sullivan would come. She paid for violence and reveled in it. He looked at the other defendants. Tiffany Reed, Amber Cole, Stephanie Walsh, and Nicole Carter took that money and delivered violence with enthusiasm. They kicked a pregnant woman. They stomped on her belly. They laughed while doing it. Marcus faced the jury fully. Brianna Hunt participated, and she'll serve time for that. But she's the only one who showed remorse, the only one who admitted wrongdoing, the only one who helped the prosecution build this case. He paused. The defense wants you to believe this was a tragic misunderstanding, that tempers flared and things got out of hand. But 17 minutes isn't a moment of passion. 3 weeks of planning isn't spontaneous. A $2,000 payment isn't an accident. This was attempted murder, premeditated, calculated, evil. Find them guilty, all of them, and send the message that pregnant women deserve protection, not violence. That betrayal has consequences. That justice still exists. Marcus sat down. The defense attorneys gave their closing arguments, tried to create reasonable doubt, tried to paint their clients as victims of circumstance. It rang hollow. Judge Morrison gave jury instructions. You've heard testimony and seen evidence. You must base your verdict solely on that evidence. Find the truth. Deliver justice. The jury retired to deliberate. Grace waited in the witness room with her brothers. Connor paced. Blake cracked his knuckles. Tyler took her blood pressure every 15 minutes. Carson held her hand. Ryan stood at the window watching. Austin guarded the door. Evelyn sat beside Grace, knitting something small and yellow. How long do you think? Grace asked. Not long, Connor said. The evidence is overwhelming. 2 hours passed, 3, 4. At the 4-hour mark, Grace started to worry. What if they can't agree? They'll agree, Marcus said, entering the room. This much deliberation isn't about guilt. It's about charges. They're deciding between first-degree attempted murder and second-degree. What's the difference? Premeditation. First degree means planned. Second degree means intentional, but spontaneous. It was planned, Grace said. I know, and the jury knows it too. At hour 5, the bailiff appeared. Jury's back. Everyone stood. Grace's hands shook. Carson took one. Evelyn took the other. Whatever happens, Evelyn said, we're here. The courtroom was packed again. Every seat filled. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but Grace could hear them outside. The whole country was watching this case. The jury filed in. Grace searched their faces for clues. Were they sympathetic? Angry? Conflicted? Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Morrison asked. The forewoman stood, an older black woman with kind eyes. We have, Your Honor. In the case of the state versus Derek Sullivan, on the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty, Grace's breath caught. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder? Guilty. On the charge of assault with a deadly weapon? Guilty. On the charge of child endangerment? Guilty. 4 guilty verdicts. Derek's face went white. In the case of the state versus Vanessa Brooks, guilty on all counts. Tiffany Reed, guilty on all counts. Amber Cole, guilty on all counts. Stephanie Walsh, guilty on all counts. Nicole Carter, guilty on all counts. Brianna Hunt's case was separate due to her plea deal, but the others, all guilty. Judge Morrison's face was stern. The jury has spoken. Sentencing will be held in 2 weeks. Until then, all defendants remain in custody. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. It was over. Grace sat frozen. Around her, her brothers erupted in relief. Evelyn squeezed her hand. Marcus smiled. But Grace just sat there, staring at Derek. He was looking at her now, really looking at her. And Grace saw fear in his eyes. Finally, fear. She stood, walked to the gallery railing. Derek was only 10 feet away. Grace, he said. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No, you're not, Grace said calmly. You're sorry you got caught. Sorry you're going to prison, but you're not sorry for what you did. I am, I swear. You watched them beat me for 17 minutes. You took money for delivering me to them. You helped carry my unconscious body to your car. Grace's voice never rose, never wavered. Don't insult me by pretending you're sorry now. Derek opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I loved you. No, Grace said, you didn't. You never did, and that's something I can finally accept. She turned and walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. It was done. But outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Grace's brothers formed a protective wall, but she stopped them. "Let me speak," she said. Ryan started to object. Grace shook her head. "I need to do this." She approached the microphones. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Grace waited until they quieted. "My name is Grace Sullivan," she began. "6 months ago, my husband and his mistress and her friends tried to kill me and my unborn daughter. Today, they were found guilty. Justice was served." She paused. Cameras clicked. "I'm speaking today not just for myself, but for every woman who's been betrayed by someone they trusted. Every woman who's been isolated, manipulated, gaslit into thinking she was the problem. Every woman who survived violence and had to fight for justice." Her voice strengthened. "Violence against pregnant women is an epidemic. 1 in 4 pregnant women experience domestic violence. Many don't survive. I almost didn't survive. But I did. And so did my daughter." Grace's hand went to her belly. "If my story helps even one woman recognize danger signs earlier, if it helps even one woman leave before it's too late, then everything I went through meant something." She looked directly at the cameras. "To anyone in an abusive relationship, trust your gut. Trust your friends and family who see what you can't. Trust that you deserve better. And know that leaving is hard, but staying can be fatal." "Thank you." She turned and let her brothers lead her away. Behind her, reporters erupted with follow-up questions. She didn't answer. She'd said what she needed to say. The rest could speak for itself. Damn. 2 weeks later, Grace sat in the courtroom again for sentencing. Judge Morrison looked at each defendant in turn. "I've presided over many cases in my career. This one stands out for its calculated cruelty. 6 adults planned and executed an attempt to murder a pregnant woman for financial gain. The level of premeditation, the violence inflicted, the complete absence of remorse. All of it speaks to the character of these defendants." She looked at Derek. "Derek Sullivan, you betrayed every vow you made. You sold your wife like property. You participated in attempted murder of your own child. You showed no humanity, no compassion, no basic human decency. I sentence you to 25 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 15 years. Derek's lawyer tried to object. Judge Morrison silenced him with a look. "Vanessa Brooks, you orchestrated this attack. You recruited the attackers. You paid for violence. You celebrated while your victim lay dying. I sentence you to 20 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 12 years. One by one, Judge Morrison sentenced the others. Tiffany Reed, 15 years. Amber Cole, 15 years. Stephanie Walsh, 12 years. Nicole Carter, 12 years. Brianna Hunt, in her separate hearing, received 8 years due to her cooperation. When it was over, Grace stood. All 6 defendants would be in prison for more than a decade. Derek would be nearly 60 when he got out. It was enough. Not perfect, not complete, but enough. 8 weeks later, Grace woke to contractions at 3 in the morning. "Carson," she called. He was asleep on the couch, still refusing to leave her alone at night. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, but I think it's time." Carson was instantly alert. "Time? Time? Baby time." They made it to the hospital at 4 a.m. Tyler met them there. He'd been on call at a nearby base. By 6, Ryan and Connor had arrived. Blake, Hunter, and Austin by 8. All 7 brothers. All there. Labor was hard, painful, long. But Grace had survived worse. At 2:43 p.m., Emma Grace Sullivan entered the world. 6 pounds, 8 ounces, healthy, perfect. Grace held her daughter and cried. Not sad tears, not scared tears, relief tears, joy tears. We made it tears. "She's beautiful," Tyler said, his medical training momentarily forgotten as he just stared at his niece. "She looks like you," Carson told Grace. She did. Dark hair, small nose. But those eyes were all Mitchell. "Welcome to the world, Emma," Grace whispered. "You have no idea how many people love you already." One by one, her brothers met their niece. Ryan held her with surprising gentleness. Connor snapped approximately 300 photos. Blake looked terrified he'd break her. Hunter immediately calculated her height and weight percentiles. Austin cried. I'm not crying, Austin protested. Something in my eye. Sure, Tyler said. That's why you've been crying for 10 minutes. Evelyn arrived and took her granddaughter with the confidence of a woman who'd raised 8 children. Perfect, she declared. Absolutely perfect. Grace watched her family crowd around Emma. Watch these huge, dangerous men become putty in the hands of a 6-pound baby. This was her life now. Single mother, survivor, strong enough to protect her daughter from anything. 1 year later, Grace sat cross-legged on the floor of her apartment, watching Emma take wobbly steps. The baby, not such a baby anymore, clutched her mother's fingers and giggled. Come on, Em, Grace encouraged. You can do it. Emma let go, stood for a moment on her own, took 1 step, 2, 3, then promptly sat down hard on her diaper-padded bottom. Grace scooped her up. Good job, you did it. Emma giggled and clapped her chubby hands. The TV was on in the background. News. Grace barely paid attention these days. She had more important things to focus on. But then she heard it. Appeals denied in the Sullivan case. Derek Sullivan and Vanessa Brooks will serve their full sentences. This concludes one of the most shocking domestic violence cases in recent memory. Grace glanced at the TV. Derek's mugshot appeared on screen. He looked old, broken. She felt nothing, no anger, no satisfaction, no emotion at all. He was just a man she used to know. A mistake she'd survived. A chapter that was closed. Mama, Emma demanded attention, pulling at Grace's hair. Yes, baby, Mama's here. Grace turned off the TV, picked up Emma, danced around the living room while her daughter squealed with delight. There was a knock on the door. Tyler dropping by for lunch. He did that now, stopped by unannounced with food and jokes and uncle time. How's my favorite niece? Tyler asked, taking Emma and tossing her gently in the air. Your only niece, Grace pointed out. Still my favorite. They ate sandwiches, played with Emma, talked about nothing important. It was perfect. Later, after Tyler left, Grace put Emma down for a nap, stood in the nursery doorway watching her daughter sleep. Emma's first birthday had been last week. 7 brothers, 1 grandmother, friends from Grace's new survivor support group, and a ridiculous amount of cake. Grace had started law school last fall, part-time, online classes when Emma napped. She wanted to help other women, wanted to be a voice for survivors. And maybe she was dating someone. Michael, a former SEAL who'd served with Ryan. He was patient, kind, gentle with Emma, taking things slow, very slow. Grace wasn't in a hurry. She had time. She had herself. She had Emma. That was enough. Her phone buzzed. Text from Carson. Just checking in. You good? Grace smiled and typed back. Better than good. We're great. And she meant it. Derek had tried to erase her, tried to erase Emma, tried to leave nothing behind but death and insurance money. Instead, he'd given Grace something he never intended. Freedom. Freedom from a toxic marriage. Freedom from gaslighting and control. Freedom to be herself again. He'd wanted to take everything, but he'd given her back herself. Grace walked to her bedroom, looked in the mirror, saw a strong woman, a survivor, a mother, a fighter. Thank you, she whispered to her reflection. Not thank you to Derek, never to Derek. Thank you to herself, for surviving, for fighting, for refusing to stay a victim. In the living room, Emma woke from her nap with a happy shriek. Grace heard little feet padding across the floor. Mama! Grace turned from the mirror and went to her daughter who was alive, who was healthy, who would grow up knowing she was loved, protected, valued. Her daughter who would never know what it meant to be controlled by a man. Grace picked up Emma and held her close. I love you, she whispered, more than anything in this world. Emma patted her mother's cheek with a sticky hand. Mama. And in that moment, Grace understood something profound. Derek had wanted to destroy her, but instead he'd transformed her into something stronger, something unbreakable, into exactly who she was always meant to be. Come on, baby girl, Grace said, spinning Emma around until they both laughed. Let's go make dinner. Uncle Austin's coming over tonight. Oh, Emma shrieked happily. Grace carried her daughter to the kitchen, started preparing food, hummed a song she'd forgotten she knew. Outside, the sun was setting. Inside, her home was warm. And in the distance, so far away it didn't matter, Derek Sullivan sat in a prison cell and realized what he'd lost. But Grace didn't think about that. She was too busy living. Grace Sullivan's story didn't end in that courtroom. It transformed into something bigger. A voice for survivors, a warning for abusers, a testament to the strength we don't know we have until we're forced to use it. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that survival is possible even after the worst betrayal, do me a favor. Hit that like button, not for me, for every Grace out there who needs to know their story matters. Drop a comment below. Tell me what struck you most. Share your own story of survival if you're comfortable. This community is built on supporting each other. Share this video because somewhere someone needs to hear Grace's story. Someone needs to recognize the warning signs. Someone needs to know they're not alone. And subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because I bring you real stories of real people who refuse to stay victims. Stories of justice. Stories of transformation. Stories that matter. Grace rebuilt her entire life from nothing. She went from a hospital bed to a courtroom to law school, from victim to survivor to advocate. If she can do that, imagine what you can do. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember, you're stronger than you think, and you're never alone.